What if the only way to win is to stop playing? What if the most powerful move in life isn't to outsmart others, outshine competitors, or accumulate trophies, but to walk away from the game entirely? You see, most people spend their lives inside invisible cages. Cages made of expectations, comparisons, societal scripts, and unspoken rules. From the moment we're born, we're placed on a conveyor belt of conditioning. Go to school, get good grades, fit in, be attractive, get a job, get married, don't stand out too much, don't question too loudly, just keep playing, just keep running, just keep pretending you're okay. And the game smiles, it claps, it rewards you with likes, followers, praise, paychecks, sex, success. It gives you crumbs so you keep chasing the cake. But the truth is far more brutal and far more liberating. The entire system is built to keep you playing. Because as long as you're playing, you're not thinking. As long as you're reacting, you're not seeing. As long as you're chasing, you're not free. And if you ever looked around and felt like something's off, like you're stuck in a loop of repetition, like your soul is suffocating under the weight of superficiality, you're not crazy. You're waking up. You're waking up to the reality behind the illusion, to the machine beneath the mask, to the prison hidden inside the playground. And here's the twist no one tells you. You're not here to play their game. You're here to remember who you are before they taught you to forget. We are taught to believe that winning in life means dominating the system, becoming the best, the richest, the most wanted, the most powerful. But what if the ones who truly win are the ones who transcend the game altogether? Because every time you react to a comment, you feed the game. Every time you chase attention, you serve the game. Every time you fear judgment, you kneel to the game. But when you step back, when you observe without attachment, when you act from clarity instead of impulse, you become something else entirely. You become untouchable. And that's what this is about. This isn't about passivity. This isn't about withdrawal or resignation. This is about power. Real power. The kind that can't be bought, broken, or stolen. It's the power of the Stoic. The one who doesn't flinch in chaos. The one who walks through fire without losing himself. The one who knows that the game can only control you if you forget that you're not a piece on the board. You're the player. You're the observer. You're the one who steps back and sees it all for what it really is. An illusion, a dream, a test, a stage. And in this stage, most people are acting, reciting lines they never chose, playing roles they didn't audition for, living lives that don't belong to them. But you're different. You've started asking questions. You've started noticing the cracks in the surface. You've started realizing that maybe the most courageous act is to stop playing altogether, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Because when you no longer need validation from the game loses its grip on you. And what happens then? You become dangerous. Not in the way the world defines danger. Not through violence or rebellion, but through stillness, through unshakable presence, through the quiet refusal to be controlled. Because when you no longer react to every provocation, when you no longer chase every trend, when you no longer beg for love or approval, you become the one thing the system can't touch. Free. This is where the path of the Stoic begins. Not on the battlefield, not in the courtroom, not in the spotlight, but in silence, in solitude, in that sacred space where you finally ask, what am I doing and who told me to do it? It's in that moment that the illusion begins to crack. Because what if success isn't what they told you? What if love isn't what you've been chasing? What if happiness was never in the prize, but in the freedom to walk away? What if walking away is a victory? What if detachment isn't giving up, but waking up? And what if the real game, the one worth playing, is not about domination, but liberation? You weren't born to play small. You weren't born to be another cog in someone else's machine. You were born to see clearly, to walk deliberately, to speak truthfully, to live inwardly. This isn't just about philosophy. It's about breaking the trance. It's about remembering that peace is not passive. Peace is powerful. Because when you are no longer controlled by fear, when you are no longer addicted to praise, when you are no longer manipulated by appearances, you become sovereign. And that is how you win, not by playing harder, but by no longer needing the game. Stay with me, because this is just the beginning. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had one of those nights where you're lying in bed, lights off, the world silent, and suddenly your heart sinks with a question you can't answer? Is this all there is? You've checked the boxes. You've done what they said. Maybe you've achieved something people admire. Maybe you've followed the script with military precision. And yet, there's a strange emptiness, this hollow echo inside you whispering, something's missing. You can't explain it to your friends. They'd say you're being dramatic. You can't talk to your parents. They'd say you should be grateful. You can't even face it directly. Because what if it's true? What if everything you've been working for doesn't matter the way they promised? And so you stay quiet. You keep smiling. You keep playing. But inside you know you're drifting further and further from yourself. This is the silent war no one talks about. The quiet erosion of the soul beneath layers of performance. And it's not just you. It's the man who earns 6 figures but feels like a fraud every time he looks in the mirror. It's the woman who's admired by thousands online but cries when she's alone. It's the student with perfect grades who feels dead inside. Modern life is a masquerade. We wear masks to survive. We play roles to be accepted. We exchange authenticity for applause until we forget who we were before the performance began. But the pain doesn't go away. It grows. It grows in the form of anxiety, fatigue, resentment, burnout. It grows every time you say yes when you mean no. It grows every time you silence your truth to fit into someone else's expectations. And deep down, you know this too. No amount of money, fame, love, or success can fill the void that comes from betraying yourself. That's the real crisis of our time. Not war, not politics, not climate. The real epidemic is spiritual. It's the epidemic of disconnection. Disconnection from truth. Disconnection from soul. Disconnection from what is real and eternal. And that's why the Stoics matter now more than ever. Because they weren't interested in trends. They weren't trying to be liked. They weren't seduced by applause. They were anchored in something deeper. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he wrote to himself as a humble student of life. Seneca was one of the richest men in Rome, yet he taught that wealth means nothing if your soul is enslaved. Epictetus was born a slave, yet he was freer than the emperors who feared their own shadows. These men faced chaos, corruption, exile, and death, but they didn't flinch. Why? Because their power didn't come from a game. It came from within. They knew what we've forgotten. You can lose everything and still win if you never lose yourself. You don't need to be a philosopher to feel what they felt, because if you've ever looked around and thought, none of this makes sense, if you ever scrolled through endless feeds and felt more disconnected than ever, if you've ever felt pressure to be someone you're not, just to survive or be loved, then you're already one of them. You're already walking the path. And maybe, just maybe, that quiet ache inside you isn't something to run from. Maybe it's a compass. Maybe it's your soul trying to wake you up, to remind you that you were not born to perform. You were not born to compete endlessly. You were not born to be consumed by a game that never lets you rest. You were born to remember, to reconnect, to reclaim. And the first step is to stop pretending. Stop pretending you're okay when you're not. Stop pretending you're fulfilled when you feel empty. Stop pretending you don't care when your heart is screaming for something real. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And honesty is a birthplace of transformation, because once you admit the truth, everything starts to shift. You begin to see the game for what it is. You begin to notice the invisible strings. You begin to understand why no amount of winning ever made you feel whole. And in that realization, a seed is planted, the seed of sovereignty. You start asking better questions. Not how do I win, but why am I playing? Not how do I impress them, but do I even like myself? You begin to return home to yourself. And that, my friend, is where the real game begins. Not the game of society, not the game of ego, but the game of awakening. The game of learning how to live with depth, clarity, and unshakable inner freedom. You're not broken. You're just waking up. And that feeling you've been running from, it's not a curse. It's a calling. A call to stop betraying yourself. A call to stop outsourcing your worth. A call to stop dimming your light, to fit into a world that profits from your confusion. And it starts with one brave choice: to stop playing, not out of fear, but out of truth, out of the undeniable realization that your soul was not made for cages, that your mind was not made to be manipulated, that your heart was not made to be numb. You were made to live wide awake, to love fiercely, to stand tall in the storm and whisper, I remember who I am. And in that moment, everything changes. Stay close, because what comes next is liberation. Let's stop here for a moment. Take a breath, because now we go deep. You've seen the mask. You've felt the ache. But what do you do with it? How do you go from playing a game unconsciously to mastering it without losing yourself? That's where Stoicism becomes a weapon, not a cold intellectual theory, but a fire-tested operating system for the soul. Let's begin. The prison of reaction. Most people are not living, they are reacting. Reacting to messages, to emails, to trends, to pressure, to fear, to what someone else said or didn't say, to childhood trauma never resolved, to beliefs never questioned, to systems never chosen. Like puppets being pulled by invisible strings, they twitch and dance to the rhythm of external events, mistaking movement for meaning. But the Stoics saw this trap 2,000 years ago. They understood that the root of human suffering is not in the events themselves, but in our judgment of them, our reactions. Man is not disturbed by things, but by the views he takes of them. Epictetus. Think about that. It's not your job that destroys you. It's the story you attach to it. It's not rejection that wounds you. It's what you tell yourself it means. It's not failure that breaks you. It's the shame you pile on top of it. This is the game most never realize they're playing. They are not responding with awareness. They are reacting with programming. And here's the dark truth. Whoever controls your reaction controls your reality. Advertising agencies, politicians, algorithms, fear-driven headlines, parents who never healed, ex-lovers who never respected you. If they can push your buttons, you're not free. You're programmed. The Stoics called this slavery of the soul, but they also taught the way out, the power of the inner citadel. Imagine that within you exists a fortress, a place no one can enter. No tweet, no insult, no loss, no war, no breakup, no market crash can breach its walls. This is what Marcus Aurelius called your inner citadel. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength. Marcus Aurelius. This citadel is not apathy. It's not detachment in the cold sense. It's not pretending you don't care. It's deeper than that. It is a decision, moment by moment, to remain sovereign, to refuse to be pulled into emotional chaos by forces that do not deserve your energy. It's the power to say, I see what's happening. I understand my triggers, but I choose not to be mastered by them. This is how you stop playing the game. You don't run away. You don't retreat from life. You learn how to observe without absorption, to engage without identification, to care deeply without being owned. Modern psychology confirms ancient wisdom. What Stoicism intuited centuries ago is now confirmed by neuroscience and modern psychology. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective therapeutic methods today, is directly based on Stoic principles. In fact, the founder of CBT, Dr. Albert Ellis, cited Epictetus as a major influence. CBT teaches what the Stoics taught, that your thoughts shape your feelings, and your feelings shape your behavior. Here's the key. You don't have to believe every thought you think. Just because a voice in your mind screams, I'm not enough, doesn't make it true. Just because you feel unworthy doesn't mean you are. That voice may be a ghost, an echo from a parent who couldn't love you properly, a leftover script from a society that profits from your self-doubt. But you are not that voice. And the moment you question it, the moment you pause and say, wait, is this true? You break the spell. This is the birth of inner freedom. Reclaiming the gap between stimulus and response, there is a sacred space, a pause, a breath, and in that breath lies your freedom, your power, your sovereignty. Most people live as if this gap doesn't exist. Someone insults them, they lash back. They lose a job, they spiral into despair. They feel lonely, they text someone toxic just to feel wanted. But the Stoic cultivates the gap. They expand the space between impulse and action. They ask, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? Who benefits from this reaction? Is this aligned with who I want to be? This is not passivity. It is power in its most elegant form, because in that gap, you reclaim your authorship. You stop being a character in someone else's story, and you begin to write your own, the art of withdrawing from the theater. Seneca once wrote that most people suffer not from life itself, but from performance of it. We spend our lives acting out scripts we didn't write. The good son, the ambitious climber, the perfect partner, the hyperproductive hustler. But behind every performance is a quiet question. Will they still love me if I stop performing? That's the terror. That if we stop hustling, pleasing, proving, performing, we'll be unloved, unseen, abandoned. But here's the radical truth Stoicism invites us to consider. If they only love the role you play, they don't love you. And if you only value yourself when performing, do you love you? The Stoic doesn't just leave the stage. He burns the script. He stops seeking applause and starts seeking alignment. He asks not, what will make them clap? But what will make me whole? This is the essence of living without playing the game. Tools for inner mastery. Let's get practical, because this isn't philosophy for ivory towers. It's survival training for the modern soul. Here are Stoic tools you can start using today. 1. The dichotomy of control. Ask yourself in any situation, what's in my control and what isn't? Then let go of what isn't. Completely, mercilessly. Focus your entire being on what is, your thoughts, your choices, your character. Everything else? Noise. 2. Negative visualization. Imagine losing what you take for granted. Your health, your partner, your income, your time. Not to depress yourself, but to awaken gratitude, to stop sleepwalking through a life that others are begging for. Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." 3. Morning premeditation, evening reflection. Start your day like a general before battle. Ask, what might test me today? How do I want to respond? Who do I choose to be? And end your day with reflection. Where did I fall short? Where did I remain centered? What did I learn? This practice transforms life into training, and every moment into a chance to rise. 4. The view from above. Close your eyes. Picture the earth from space. See your life, your problems, your ambitions, your pain. Now zoom out. See your city, your country, your continent, the spinning planet in infinite silence. And ask, does this really matter as much as I think it does? This perspective shatters ego, and from that humility, peace is born. 5. Voluntary discomfort. Do something hard on purpose. Take a cold shower. Fast for a day. Walk without headphones. Not to punish yourself, but to train your resilience. To remember that comfort is a liar and struggle is a forge. You do not grow by avoiding difficulty. You grow by mastering your response to it. And that's the Stoic code. Not to escape life, not to dominate others, but to master the only thing that has ever truly belonged to you, yourself. 1. The Stoic awakening. Seeing the game without being the game. The Stoics weren't trying to escape the world. They were trying to see the world clearly. We live trapped in a collective illusion. The illusion that external success equals inner freedom. The illusion that if we gain more, achieve more, accumulate more, then we'll be enough. But Epictetus said it clearly. It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things. What does that mean? It means pain doesn't come from reality. It comes from how we interpret reality. It's not the fact that someone ignores you that hurts. It's what that means to you. I'm not important. It's not the criticism that wounds you. It's the thought, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not enough. The enemy was never the world. It was the story the world taught you to tell yourself. And the Stoics discovered something most people forget. You can lose everything and still keep your power. If you remember that you are the author of your interpretation, when you take control of your perception, you take control of your experience. And when you take control of your experience, you reclaim your freedom. This isn't theory. It's an inner revolution. 2. The R distinction, control versus no control. The core tool of Stoic wisdom is this simple, powerful distinction. Some things are within my control, others are not. Think about it. Your body can get sick. Your job can vanish. Your loved ones can leave. The market can crash. The weather can go mad. And yet, something remains untouchable. Your judgment, your attitude, your response, your soul. And in that space, that tiny space between stimulus and response, lives your freedom. The Stoics invite you to cultivate one kind of power only, power over yourself. You can't control what others think of you, but you can control whether you live by their expectations or by your truth. You can't control the outcome of your efforts, but you can control your intention, your discipline, your integrity. You can't control external chaos, but you can become inner order. That's the secret. True strength isn't resisting the storm. It's staying at peace within the storm. 3. The soul's muscle. Stoic practices for real life. The Stoics weren't just thinkers in libraries. They were warriors of the soul. And their training wasn't theoretical. It was daily. Here are 5 Stoic practices you can start using today. 1. The dichotomy of control, the daily question. Whenever you feel anxious, angry, or frustrated, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, act with excellence. This question frees you from unnecessary suffering. 2. Premeditatio malorum, visualizing adversity. Before any important event, close your eyes and imagine the worst that could happen. Not to obsess, but to prepare. Seneca said, "He who anticipates the suffering suffers less." When you calmly prepare your mind, life surprises you less and wounds you less. 3. Memento mori, remember you will die. Yes, it sounds dark, but it's one of the most enlightening things you can do. Memento mori isn't about fearing death. It's about remembering the urgency of life. When you remember that time is limited, you stop delaying your truth. You stop tolerating the intolerable. You stop living asleep. For virtue is a North Star, not what you gain, but who you become. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be. Choose not to feel harmed, and you haven't been." Your goal isn't to be right, to win debates, or to pile up trophies. Your goal is to become someone whose soul is at peace. Virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance is the only outcome always within your grasp. 5. The Stoic Journal, daily conversations with your higher self. Every night, take a few moments to write down 3 things. Where did I act according to my values today? Where did I fall short? What can I do better tomorrow? This simple ritual pulls you out of autopilot and reconnects you with your center. 4. The invisible victory, winning without playing the game. And then one day, everything changes. Not because the world becomes fairer, not because your circumstances magically improve, but because you no longer react the same. You no longer chase validation. You no longer beg for belonging. You no longer trade your soul for a crumb of approval. You start walking differently, slower, deeper, freer. You start saying no without guilt. You start loving without needing. You start creating without fear of judgment. And most importantly, you begin to live by your truth, not by their script. You don't need fame to feel seen. You don't need wealth to feel abundant. You don't need the world's permission to be yourself. Because in the end, the only victory that matters is the one over your own forgetting. So now you know, this isn't just a video. This is a message that your soul needed to remember. Because deep down, you were never lost. You were simply buried under expectations, comparisons, noise. But underneath it all, beneath the armor and the fear and the pretending, you were always there. Not the version of you that tries to please. Not the version of you that chases love. Not the version of you that begs the world to see your worth. No, I'm talking about the version of you that is unshakable. The one who doesn't need anything to be everything. The one who walks through the fire and remembers who they are. That's your power. And you don't have to fight for it. You just have to return to it. So the next time life knocks you down, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what part of me is being called to rise? When you feel overwhelmed, breathe. When you feel lost, get still. When you feel broken, remember, even broken seeds grow. If this message stirred something in you, if your soul whispered this is true, then don't let it fade. Subscribe to this channel right now, not just to follow more content, but to walk this path with others who are also remembering who they are. Because we're not just building an audience here. We're building a movement of people who choose to be conscious in a world that sleeps, who choose depth in a world that distracts, who choose truth in a world that rewards performance. You've already made the most important move. You've listened with your heart open. Now it's time to live with your soul on fire. So ask yourself tonight, what would my life look like if I stopped betraying myself? Who would I become if I stopped shrinking to fit in? What would happen if I finally let go of who I thought I should be and embraced who I already am? The answer is not out there. The answer is you, and you've always had the power. It was just waiting for this moment.